it's Marie-Komisarek here, and I just wanted to give you some springtime inspiration for really a time to reassess the things in your life, all aspects, mind, body, and spirit. For me, when spring hits, I get this reinvigorated energy to, I don't know, to shed out dead things, things that aren't serving me, old, outmoded ways of living, of thinking, of eating, ways to kind of just purge, but first reassessing. So I like to look at the plants as a really wonderful metaphor for this time of year and what we can kind of be emulating within them. And when you look at your yard right now, or even the plants that grow on the sides of the roads, of highways and whatnot, it's still fairly brown. The dead pieces of the plants, the dead parts of the plants are still there from last season, but what you start to notice is that there's fresh, bright green sprigs of growth that are coming up through the old parts and eventually are going to take over the old stuff and kind of bring that newness and that freshness back to life and back to our surroundings. So I like to use the plants as inspiration as well to remind myself that I too can keep growing and evolving into this spring-like energy and kind of slough off the dead stuff that maybe isn't working. So the areas that I personally like to look at are, first of all, mindset. Our minds are very powerful things, and each cell in our bodies are constantly listening to what's going on up here. So for me and for my experience, everything starts in the mind. So a happy mind, a peaceful mind, a mind with clarity, then can trickle out into our physical bodies and into the world around us. It helps to manifest everything we could possibly want or desire. So thinking about the sort of chatterbox brain, things that we tell ourselves, beliefs we might be holding, just patterns of thought that maybe aren't so great for us, aren't so positive, aren't so supportive and encouraging. And I think we all go through bouts of that. And so just taking the time to notice, what repetitive thoughts am I having that I can let go of? So the first step is just noticing what some of those things might be that are going on up here that are not helpful. Worrying is by far the least useful of all the emotions and feelings, so that's a big one for me. So sometimes when I'm reassessing things, I'll just take my journal out and start jotting things down, just kind of stream of consciousness, and just write things down, things that you're noticing, or even have a notebook just with you throughout the day to jot things down that you're noticing that, like, you know what, this isn't serving me anymore. I'm going to write this down and remember, like, hey, every time I have this thought, let's just try to bring it back to a positive affirmation or something that can empower and sort of dissolve that thought and replace it with something more beneficial and positive, because it really does make a difference. The second area I like to look at, of course, is how I'm treating my physical body. I just finished a spring cleanse that I was doing during my yoga teacher training, and it was really just kind of letting go of my triggers or my crutches, food-wise, because I'm definitely someone who is constantly battling with finding a middle ground for being healthy and happy, but also enjoying life and enjoying foods, because I love food so much. So finding the gray area for me has always been my struggle, still is, but life is always filled with those lessons. So I find myself either cleansing myself to death, not literally, but I'm really good at depriving myself of things that I love. So I've done that a million times over. And I'm also really good at going to the other spectrum and just being like, screw it, I'm eating everything I want right now. So I'm either here or there. So for me, this past cleanse was kind of tuning in to that middle of the road, being able to have my cupcake on occasion and then rein it back in, keep shooting for those green smoothies and those delicious salads and roasted vegetables that I know nourish me and make me feel good in my body. So bringing that consciousness back to my food choices, I think is really valuable, so that I'm consciously making choices. I'm not just shoving food in my mouth. So really tuning into what those triggers might be for you. Again, jotting them down, taking note of what your cravings are, and maybe, is it a craving for an apple or is it a craving for that fudge brownie? And seeing how often you are indulging in those things. And if it's just once in a while, hey, no big thing. That's totally great. Or maybe you're noticing that there's something that you just can't function without, and maybe you can look at that more deeply and take a break from it, whether it's sugar, coffee, alcohol, cupcakes. Like, that's my big thing, is cupcakes. Sometimes it's nice to give yourself a break, whether it's 3 days, whether it's a week, just kind of giving yourself a quick little cleanse and reassessment to kind of lighten that tendency, lighten that crutch that, is not serving your physical body. And maybe there's a connection that you can kind of lift off in your mental awareness that maybe that crutch is really stemming from. So then there's that part. The other part of how I'm treating my physical body, of course, is movement. Now, I've been doing a yoga teacher training for the past almost 8 months, and I've been getting a lot more into consistent movement. So for me, I've been doing yoga, and I can tell you that on the days that I skip it, I feel completely different. I am so much more clear. My body feels so much better when I'm moving it. And it can be even for 20 minutes in the morning when I can't make it to a class, my self-practice. It doesn't have to be for a long time, but it makes a huge difference. And, I don't even like to use the word exercise. I like just thinking of movement, moving your body, because it can look like lots of different things. And make sure it's something that you enjoy, that you can look forward to, whether it's running, if you love running, whether it's dancing around your house. That could be something. If you have a hula hoop, maybe your kids have hula hoops, you all want to have a little hula hoop party in the backyard. Again, it doesn't have to be for a long time. It can be for like 15, 20 minutes. It can be a walk around the block, biking, you name it. Just move your body, get your heart rate up a little bit. Even YouTube has a gazillions of videos, from Pilates to kickboxing to yoga to belly dancing, and they're free. So, check those out too, and, make it a priority, because moving your body is enormous, and it just helps everything else, and it can be really fun. So that's something that I'm tuning into, incorporating more of. So I'm reassessing that aspect. And then, what else do I assess in the spring? I guess kind of my goals. Where am I right now that I'm not feeling good about? Especially in my work, where are some stuck points that I need to kind of find some wiggle room around? And where do I want to be going? So in the workplace especially, are you happy with your work? Do you feel excited to get up in the morning and start doing it? Are there areas that you like, areas that you don't like? Write your pros and cons down. Not all of this reassessment is easy to change immediately, but it's nice to check them out and be real about how it's affecting your life and your well-being and your happiness, and kind of just tune into that and see, okay, I love this, I don't love this so much, or maybe like, hey, I'm done with this work, I'm ready for a change. And even though it might not happen overnight, putting it down on paper or talking about it with a friend makes it real, and it really sends the intention out to spirit, out to God, the universe, whatever you want to call it, that you're ready, like you're willing and ready. So let's start shifting some things around and maybe opening up some new avenues for opportunities. So it's really great to kind of get it out there in whatever which way you want to look at it. And then the last piece of springtime reassessment is that of in relationships, love relationships and friendships. What friendships and relationships are serving you right now? What ones lighten you, give you inspiration and joy and excitement and enthusiasm and just appreciation, gratitude? Who are those people that feed that energy for you? And then who are those people who kind of drain you and make you feel heavy, and just kind of being around them, is more work than it's worth maybe. Sometimes after you hang out with them, you just kind of feel worse than you did before meeting them. Really be real about that too. And again, these changes or these assessments aren't always easy to change immediately, but again, bringing the awareness and the truth around it to the forefront really helps to make room for change if you're ready to do that. And so in my practice, if you know me at all, you know that all these components of our lives are woven right in together. So they all affect the other. So it's important from time to time to look at all these things and to really take note of, what's making me happy, what's not. It can be as simple as that. And even though some things might feel like they're totally stagnant, they're totally unchangeable, there's nothing you can do to change them, try to break that mind, that belief system, because there's always room for change. In fact, change is the only constant in our lives. So don't, count anything out. Know that everything has wiggle room to shift and change if that's what you want. So I encourage you to be inspired and invigorated by this spring that is upon us. The weather's finally hanging in there for us. And to start looking inward and outward and see what is working for you, what is bringing you joy, what is feeding you, what is making you excited about living, and then what's not. And then maybe some goals too. It's fun to just dream big and put reality aside and just write things down. You know, what's your bucket list? What are things that you've always been meaning to do but just haven't made time for it? Just start writing them out, because that really helps shift things, mixes the pot, and gets things moving in the world around you. So have fun with this new energy, this new season. I encourage you to reassess stuff and just see where it goes. You know, just bringing your intention to it is so powerful, is so magical, and it's really the first step in the right direction if you want some things to change. So thank you so much for listening to my springtime ramble. I hope that it inspired you, and feel free to check out the rest of this email, because I have some herbal allies that can help us with some of these spring purging and spring reassessing that might be going on. So some of my favorite green friends to check out as well. And I'll be talking to you soon. Happy spring.